Hello everyone, welcome to the part 1 of Wonder With Me podcast. Now we will take about the human rights approach to science, technology, and its developments. So, a human rights based approach to science, technology, and development aims to put human rights at the center of how the international community addresses pressing global issues. Human rights were incorporated into the UN's mandates, managements, and methodology. It is for the development and international cooperation by Kofi Annan in 1997. It is very important to centralize human rights in science, technology, and development because without it, there will be an intervention such as inequalities in the distribution of goods from services and natural resources to intangible resources like human dignity and autonomy. And it will only worsen, resulting in further environmental degradation and, most importantly, increased vulnerability. Human rights based methods, in other words, should not be considered as purely cosmetic, moral dimensions to policy and scientific and technological progress. They have the potential to be at the center of long term sustainability. However, the human rights based approach do not have a broad agreed definition. And this isn't to say the idea isn't well thought out or well supported. On the contrary, it establishes a framework for dealing with important global issues such as gender bias, food and water safety, and misuses of science and technology, based on a set of principles developed through international consensus. And that defines the relationship between rights holders and duty bearers. Culture clashes and policy principles are just two out of all the other examples to the human right based approach to science, technology, and development. Culture clashes human rights based strategy has its own detractors. Indeed, it is well developed, and theorists and policymakers in the global south have made a convincing case from emphasizing the Eurocentric and Western origins of human rights and how they are collide dramatically with non-European religious and social worldviews. Alternative to that, thought systems which often value holism and community over self cast doubt on the approach, seeing demands for human rights recognition as yet another strategy for subjugating citizens in the global south by imposing human and individual rights on cultures that struggle to understand them. While policy principles in this environment focus on securing human rights as well as clarification of the acts required of both rights holders and duty bearers, should be a core concept of policymaking. In practice, this means that policymakers and stakeholders must be constantly alert about the policies they create address human vulnerability and inequality, while also actively building procedures to prevent human rights violations. A human rights-based strategy at the national geopolitical levels might give disadvantaged populations more clout and discussions about the global policy, and it might push policymakers to address the components of global economic and political power that enable human rights breaches. As for my personal opinion, views, and opinion that time where COVID-19 was spreading, it was then the action of the government gave the special rights to people. Policy coordinations, I think, were implemented and its benefits are well known broadly and it is well appreciated as well. All of the government coordination mechanisms, both within and across levels of government, are critical for resolving discrepancies between sectorial priorities and policies as well as for promoting coherent and mutually supportive actions across sectors and institutions by focusing resources on common goals. Nonetheless, policy coordinations and coherence is one of the oldest and most common obstacles facing governments, and it has grown even more challenging in the face of multidimensional systematic risks, climate change, aging societies, or even a pandemic. Now let us all see the part 2 of Wonder With Me podcast. The document maybe seems to understanding humans in science, technology, and its development, and it would be best come to its prescription. It is the knowledge of learning things about the human rights approach to science and technology. It was stated that human rights are at the center of debates about how science, technology, and medicine are used. Human well-being can be improved through development. Human rights include the right to privacy, serving to safeguard the weak and vulnerable from the excesses of capitalism, science, and technology that is driven by the market. Without a human rights-based strategy, the uneven distribution of goods, from services and natural resources to intangible resources like human dignity and autonomy, would only be worsened as a result of science, technology, and progress, resulting in more environmental degradation, and above all, heightened vulnerability. According to the Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, affirms that everyone has the right to participate and profit from scientific breakthroughs as well as to be safeguarded against scientific misimplications. Because the right to the advantages of science falls under the category of culture. It is frequently viewed via the lens of cultural rights. However, the World Commission on the Ethics of Scientific Knowledge and Technology, COMEST or COMEST, at UNESCO administered independent advisory organization, is examining the implications of the Article 27 in terms of science and technology ethics. I do think that the most responsible of the challenges were also the human's capability and resource intelligence. As we see to it that this is very crucial in overcoming the challenges, as we humans were also the one who is also responsible on this given topic of the making in this document. Now let's all move on to the part 3 of Wonder With Me podcast. In 1942, a short story run around science fiction written by Isaac Asimov introduced the 3 laws of robotics, engineering safeguards, and built-in ethical principles that he would go on to use in dozens of stories and novels. They were: a robot may not be injured human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Number 2, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings. Number 1, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Number 2, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And number 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws. We all have human right to benefit from scientific progress, the right to science. This right is based on Article 27 of the United Nations. As long as I can remember, it was 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted in the aftermath of World War II. In 1966, the UN formalized these commitments into legally binding obligations. The inference is that just as governments must respect and ensure the rights to safe freedom of expression in due to process, they must also respect and ensure the RTS. Now let's go to the last part, which is the part 4 of Wonder With Me podcast. There are different ethical dilemmas posed by technology. Technology has brought many changes all around the world. Or in short, we are all in the modernized world. Technology's goal to promote the advancement of science and technology for the common good, but as technology continues to arise, different problems arises too. They serve the following problems and posed by technology: personalized genetic tests, personalized medicine, hacking into medical devices, driverless zip cars, 3D printing, adaptation to climate change, low quality and counterfeit pharmaceuticals, autonomous systems, human-animal hybrids, ensuring access to wireless and spectrum, data collection and privacy, human rights enhancement, and many more. We have different human rights-based approaches that we can use to solve the issues or dilemmas on science and technology, just like, for example, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 27, or the UNESCO Recommendation on the Status of Scientific Researchers, 1974. According to Article number 4, UNESCO Declaration on the Use of Scientific Knowledge, 1999, to Article 33. Those are just some of the human rights-based approaches that we can use to see the science and technology dilemmas, but I think we can solve the problem or dilemmas in the way that a proper usage of technology. Because if we are responsible as user of modern technology, it will probably lessen the dilemmas that we might be encountering. I do not agree with the content of the article Nicholas Carr because he just only sees one side. He only criticizes modern technology. What Carl pointed out and what concerned him most, how we surf and how we bounce and perusing, is an unused colloquialism. When we are gathered, we are perusing the listen one explanation and after that one, after another one. We pursued another how to tune in to a group of individuals. This can be blended talk dialect. Once more, we discover ourselves as the characteristic, gregarious individuals we have continuously been. As our social associations on the internet expand, we discover ourselves making information continually and quickly. We rediscovered better approaches to appreciate learning in a social environment. Overall, he just wanted to say that Google makes us stupid, but I think no, Google didn't make us stupid. Google or the web helps us in many different ways. What Google and the internet are doing and making a difference is recapturing human getting to know legacy via trading mind rapidly and social putting. So I guess that's all for our podcast for today. This has been your host, Michael Lawala Paclar, that will leave you a saying, a knowledge a day keeps your brain drain away. Goodbye. Thank you for listening. So I guess that's all for our podcast for today. This has been your host, Michael Lawala Paclar, that will leave you a saying, a knowledge a day keeps your brain drain away. Goodbye. Thank you for listening.